Hey, this is JOMAJ Studios, and this is our original fantasy action adventure, Slay, Path of a Saint. Prologue. Regrets. Mistakes made in the past. Muffling my mind like an ingenious riddle. Things I should have said. Things I should have done. Things I should have overlooked. Moments I should have shared. How can I avoid dwelling on them when most of them stare me right in the face? Sometimes I feel as though the only solution is to start my life all over again. And I do mean that literally. Regrets? I have plenty. My cousin wrote that poem when I was about 6 years old and still living in London. A period in his existence that wasn't at all rosy. This poem reflected how he felt at the time. However, even though my cousin had completely embraced depression, he knew his life was in a state because of the decisions he made. A year later, he decided to do something about the state his life was in. He got a part-time job at a fast food joint where he worked 4 evenings a week after school. He started visiting the gym regularly, which caused him to lose 4 stones in 4 months, leaving him a stone from his ideal weight. 3 months after that, he met the love of his life at a friend's 18th birthday party. Yes, things were beginning to look good for him. So much so, he bought his first car at the end of that year. It was a red 1997 Frontera Jeep, which he began to drive legally 6 months later. I remember that day well. It was just after his A-level exams. He was pleased because he finally got to drive me around with a peace of mind. He decided to cruise around London and treat me with a day of entertainment sprinkled with junk food. He was young, and he was playing loud music while driving, but he was not responsible for being crushed between a truck and a brick wall while in his car. It was no one's fault but the truck driver's. This isn't me aimlessly blaming someone. In fact, talking about this doesn't even make me angry. I'm just merely stating what happened. A couple of minutes after the crash, I was somehow able to crawl out of the car, or what was left of it anyway. It was then I saw it. A large demon that looked like some kind of mutant dragon. But that wasn't the strangest thing about the moment. Instead of feeling fear, I felt familiar with the predicament. In an instant, my real self and mission was unlocked. This wasn't good news for the demon that chose to show itself. Episode 1. Nia awoke in a very spacious and familiar looking room, well tucked in on the top of a metal framed bunk bed. There were 3 metal framed bunk beds in the room, 2 on the right hand side of the room and 1 on the left hand side behind the only door. He laid on the top bunk furthest away from the entrance/exit. All the other bunks were vacant and well laid in white bed sheets. Beside each bunk was a window that had drawn curtains, which had pretty flowers sewn on them. The curtains brightened up the room, which had grey painted walls. The room had very little furniture. In fact, other than the bunk beds and the 2 wooden tables, which were each surrounded by 4 plastic chairs, there was nothing else. He had on yellow shorts and a blue checkered shirt. It was when he noticed the shirt he had on that he realized why this room looked so familiar. This was the sick bay of Federal Government College Lagos, also known as Ijaniki. How the hell did I get here? Nee asked himself. He jumped down from the top bunk, and the room looked a little bigger. Nee went outside and found he was not mistaken. The sick bay was exactly how he remembered it. 2 unpainted bungalows linked with a square-shaped corridor, facilitating a sandy quadrangle with a cashew tree standing tall in its center. He went back inside the room and sat on a chair in an attempt to remember how he got there. The opening of the door soon interrupted his thoughts as I walked in. 5 feet 4 inches tall, with a dark-toned ebony-colored skin. Now 12 years old, I was dressed in a blue checkered shirt, neatly tucked into a clean pair of brown trousers, which I wore with a big buckled black belt. On my feet, I wore a pair of white socks along with a pair of well-polished sandals. Wearing my usual pair of glasses, I had a white plastic bag in my left hand. "You're up at last, that's good," I said, taking a seat beside him. "I bought your slippers. You left them on the field," I then said, handing the bag to him. Going along with me, trying to understand what was happening, Nee took the bag from me. He then took the slippers out and wore them on his bare feet. "Thanks." He stopped halfway in his verbal appreciation because he noticed there was something abnormal about his voice. It was prepubescent. He ran into the toilet to gargle in front of a mirror and saw an unfamiliar reflection, which was his own. The only familiar thing he saw was his light brown-colored skin. Everything else was so different. It was as if he was on an episode of Quantum Leap, a television series where a scientist travels through time helping people. Each time he arrived in a time zone, he took the form of a new person. The reflection of a fresh-faced 10-year-old who hadn't cut his hair for over 6 weeks seemed totally unfamiliar to Nee. "It must be a dream," said Nee to himself. He went back into the room, laid on the top bunk he was on previously, and tried to go back to sleep. "You're not dreaming," I said, now sitting at the edge of the bed he was lying on. Nee sat up and stared me right in the face. "Please tell me what is happening here," said Nee, trying so hard to preserve his sanity. "Why not? After all, that's what I'm here for," I replied casually. I then jumped down from Nee's bunk and made myself comfortable on the top bunk that was opposite his. "What's your name again?" asked Nee. "Tayo," I responded. "Why do I feel confused?" asked Nee. "Well, some people temporarily lose their sense of being when their true self begins to unlock," I explained. "Huh? You were playing touch football and got tackled hard, just at the moment when who you really are began to reconcile with who you have been placed as," I continued. "Huh? The world we live in has two major realms. The spirit realm, where heaven, hell, angels and demons reside, and the natural realm, where we currently reside. Angels and demons are constantly battling under a specific set of rules, governed by man's free will and God's permission, which is embedded in the reality that for every natural act, there is a spiritual connotation. This means behind every word, interaction, or decision, there's a battle between angels and demons," I continued. "Huh? Now, like with any rule-based platform, within this war, there are gray areas or loopholes, if you will, which take the form of fallen angels and demons that choose to physically manifest themselves in the natural realm, along with their mutant offspring." Offspring? Offspring that come about when they mate with humans or animals. Animals? Some demons are more animal than being, while others are just nasty. What does this have to do with me? 1 in 1,000 human beings are divine sleeper cell agents, known as saints. They are born like any regular human and live their lives accordingly, until God chooses to unlock their true selves, which is the perfect warrior capable of slaying any ungodly entity, which steps outside the spiritual realm to reap direct chaos in the natural realm. Your current disorientation is a symptom, which sometimes happens when one is unlocked. But once it passes, you will have total clarity with regards to who you are and what you're supposed to be doing, I explained. That is the end of episode 1. The scripture for this episode is Ephesians 6 verse 12. "We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age." How would you relate this scripture with this episode? And how would you relate this scripture to your life? Leave your answers on any of JOMAJ Studios' social media platforms, which can be found at jomajstudios.com. The Fall of Nell is now available on paperback and Kindle at Amazon. For more details, go to jomajstudios.com and click on Bookstore. Also at jomajstudios.com, you can check out our YouTube page, Facebook page, Twitter page, and our Instagram page, and other website features. See how you can get involved with us at jomajstudios.com.